Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. In this tutorial series, we are creating a quiz for our website. And in the previous video, we saw how to add our own questions over here. So we can see that in our main.js file, we have created this questions array. And in that we have the question, the options, and the correct answer. And in this way, you can create any number of questions you want. So right now we have 3 questions over here. And then we also saw how to display the questions in our HTML over here. So here we can see we have created this function, and we are changing the inner text of the question. So we are accessing this element over here, and we can change the inner text to anything we want. So as of now, we are changing the question to the question number that we provide when we call the function. So here if I type 0, and now if I save this, we can see that the first question is being displayed over here. So in this way, we can display any question that we want in our quiz. Now in this video, I'll show you how to display the options over here, and then we'll also see how to go to the next question when you click on the next button. So let's get started. Now if you go back to the HTML, we can see that we have already typed all the inputs and the labels over here. So now we'll just delete everything from here, and we will display everything using JavaScript. But just for reference, I'll just copy one of these and paste it over here so that we can see how it is structured. So I'll just add this inside a comment. Alright, so now let's go ahead and delete all of these. And we have this options container division, and in that we need to display all the options. So let's go back to our main.js file, and let's display the options over here. We will add the code inside the display questions function itself. Now in the previous video, we have seen how to access the different options inside the questions. So we'll just use that knowledge over here to display the options. If you haven't watched the previous videos, you can go ahead and watch that. I will leave the link of the playlist in the description of this video. So let's go ahead and loop through all the options that we have in the question number, which is provided over here. So for that, we will just type questions, and here we will type q number, and then we'll type dot options. So if you scroll up, we can see that we have this questions array, and in that we have the options array, and in the options array we have 3 options over here. So we can loop through each of these options over here. So for that, we'll use a for each loop. So we'll type for each. Now a for each loop is a way to access each of the elements one by one inside an array. So here we have to give a variable name for each of the individual elements. So for the single option, I'll just type O, and I'll just create an arrow function. Now let's just test and see whether the options are being displayed. So let's go back over here to index.html, and here we have this division with the class of options container. Let's reference that. So here we'll just type const options container equals document.query selector options container. Now let's simply display all the options inside the options container. So I'll just type options container dot inner text equals o dot option. Now we can see that the third option is displayed over here. So here we can see this is the third option. Let's display all the options. So for that, we have to type plus equals. Now we can see all the options are being displayed. Now let's add a different question number and see whether the options of that question is being displayed over here. So let's type 1 over here, and now we can see all the options of the second question are being displayed over here. So we know that the for each loop is working all right. Now let's delete this line of code, and let's create everything according to this structure that we have over here. So the first thing we need to do is create an input. So in JavaScript, you can use a function called create element to create any element you want. So let's create an input element, and we'll call it option radio button. So here we'll type document.create element, and in parentheses you have to name the element. So the element is called input. So we have our input element created. Now the next thing we need to do is we have to change the type of the element to radio. So here we'll type option radio button dot type equals radio. So now we have created an input and we have changed the type to radio. Now the next thing you have to do is add an ID attribute and add an ID over here. Now for the first option we have an ID of option 1, and for the second one we have option 2, and then for the third one we have option 3. Now to make it easier for us, we can use something called index inside this for each loop. So here we have already typed a variable name called O to access the options. We'll add one more argument over here. So I'll just add a parenthesis, and here I'll just type comma, and let's just call it O index. So this will be the index of the options. So for the first option we will have an index of 0. For the second one we will have an index of 1, and so on. So in this way we can add unique IDs to each of the options. So let's create a variable for the ID. We'll just type let option ID equals, and here we have option and then we have a number over here. So let's type option and we'll just type plus, and we can add this number over here, O index. Now for the first option we will have an option ID of option 0. Right now we have the input, we have the type set to radio, and we also have an ID. So let's set the ID over here. So we'll just type option radio button dot ID equals option ID. Now the next thing we need to do is create the name attribute, and we have to set it to option. So let's type option radio button dot name equals option. Right now let's create the label. So we'll create a constant and we'll just type option label, and we'll type document dot create element, and the element is label. And for the label element we want the for to be set to the ID of the option. So let's type option label. Now to add the for attribute you have to type HTML for, and we'll set it to the same ID that we have over here. So we will just type option ID, and then we need to add a class called option. So let's type option label dot class list dot add option, and lastly we need to add the option over here inside the label. So let's type option label dot inner text, and we'll set it equal to O dot option. Alright, now let's add the radio button and the label to our options container. So for that you have to type options container, which we have already referenced over here, this one right here. So here we have to type options container, and to add something to the options container we have to type append child, and in that we will just add the option radio button, and we also have to add the label. So just type options container dot append child option label. Right now let's save it and see whether it works, and we can see that all the options are being displayed over here. Let's load a different question. We'll just type display questions 0, and we can see that the options of that question is being displayed over here. Let's display the last question, and we can see that the two options that we have for this question is being displayed over here. Alright, now let's add the functionality to display the next question. So for that we have to change the question numbers. So we have to get rid of these numbers over here, and we have to add a variable instead of this. So we'll just create a variable called question number. So let's create a variable called question number. So we'll just type let question number equals 0. So we'll start from 0, and as we change the question number, different questions will be displayed over here using this display questions function. Now let's reference this next button, and we will add an event listener to that. So here we can see we have the next button, and we already have some code for that. This code is to display the result and to hide the quiz container. So we want to execute these lines of code when all the questions are finished. So let's also add a new variable over here, and let's call it total questions, and we'll set it equal to the number of questions. So here we can see in this questions array we have these objects. Now you can access the length property of an array in JavaScript. So let's go ahead and type, let's say, 100, and then we'll just type 100. So now we have the length property of an array in JavaScript. So let's go ahead and type 100 questions dot length. So now since we have 3 elements over here, the first question, second and the third question, the total questions will have the value of 3. Right, so here we will type question number plus plus. Now this will increment the question number variable by 1. So now since the value is 0, when this code is being executed, it will change to 1. So in this way we'll keep on incrementing the value of question number when we click on the next button. And then we have to have an if condition to check whether all the questions have finished. So for that we will type if question number is less than total questions. If that is the case, then we have to display questions, and we'll just type question number. Or if that's not the case, that is if all the questions have finished, then we have to execute these 2 lines of code. So we are calling this display questions function that we wrote over here. So let's test it out and see whether it works. Let's click on the next button, and we can see that the next question is being displayed over here, but the options of the previous question are also being displayed over here. So let's go back over here to display questions, and before this for each loop we have to remove everything inside options container. So we'll just type options container dot inner HTML equals. So this will reset everything. Now let's try it once more. Let's click on the next button, and we have the next question and the options. Let's click on the next button once more, and we have the next question and the options. And let's click on the next button once more, and we have the results screen over here. So that's basically it for this video. We have added the options, and we have also added the functionality for the next button. Now in the next video we will see how to check the answer of the user and add the scores according to the answers. So that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below, and if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.